I am on a street in Benin, a small country in West Africa. And when I walked on this street for the first time 1 week ago, I didn't know that this corner back here was going to reveal something that would shock me about international development. And really, it was the perfect ending to a story that began the moment that I arrived here. By the end of this video, you're gonna understand why this is so shocking and how it made me rethink what international development is today and America's role in it. It's the first hour that we've arrived in Benin. We're in the airport and we get to the baggage claim. It is full of passengers and baggage handlers. Normally I wouldn't be excited to see the baggage handlers because it's always a hassle trying to deal with them, telling them you don't want their help. But I've just arrived with a family of 8. We each have a carry-on bag and there are 12 checked bags coming off that airplane. I need their help. Now, I know that I have to avoid a mistake that I made in Mexico earlier this year. My wife and I went to Mexico on a little vacation and we thought like, hey, we don't need to worry about too much. We can just bring a credit card and we'll be able to pay for basically everything we need, which was true. But also there were a lot of times when we needed cash. So I remember something that my dad told me when I was 15. I was getting ready to leave the country for the first time. He handed me some cash and I kind of looked at him questioningly like, what am I gonna do with this? The country I'm going to doesn't use US dollars. And he said, son, you'll find that the American greenback is good anywhere in the world. So just before leaving and coming here, I grabbed a ton of cash, especially small bills, so I'd be ready for this situation in particular. So the handlers grab our bags, we get out to the curb, and it's time to pay them. And this is the first moment where I'm kind of in for an awakening. To give this proper context, let me introduce you to the currency used here in French West Africa. This is the West African CFA franc or franc. Now, when these West African colonies were under France, they then declared independence in 1960 and they gained political independence. But France still retained some control over their currencies, which is why this is still called the franc. Now, this is a little bit of a jerk move because France wanted to control the economies a little, but ended up producing this unexpected benefit. A lot of the other colonies, like former English colonies, for example, when they got independence and had their own currencies, they started printing money, getting a little reckless, and you had much higher inflation in those countries. Since these West African countries couldn't control that, since France had some power to make sure they limited that printing of money, they were able to have lower inflation. And inflation, especially in like emerging economies, greatly affects your demand for foreign exchange. Like in Haiti, when I go there, they have their own local currency, the goud, but usually inflation is high enough or currency fluctuations are varied enough that when I show up with dollars, they'll often give me a discount because they want those dollars so bad. Now, back to the airport. I'd messaged a friend to ask how much I should be paying these baggage handlers, and then I decided to just double it because I didn't want to be seen as the American who was taking advantage of these people. And so I hand them the cash and they get upset. Now I understand the kind of like the natural part of hustling and it's a negotiation. You always gotta say you earned a little bit more than what you're being offered, and that's fine, I get it. But they weren't just upset about the payment, they were upset about the method of payment. They did not want US dollars. They were saying they can't use the US dollars anywhere to exchange them in the airport. They weren't gonna get a very good exchange rate. If I wanted to pay in US dollars, I had to pay at a premium. I was finding a place where the American greenback wasn't good. Which brings us to this road. This is actually a brand new road. When we came here 1 week ago, they had just freshly poured it. And while that is not the shocking thing, I have been surprised at how much infrastructure and development work I've seen around here. So if you look this direction, you can see just like beach, you see, you know, those kind of hut-like things over there, pretty undeveloped. But then you turn down this way and immediately you can see so much construction going on. Then all of these street lights, those are brand new and they've got the solar panels on them. This kind of median parking strip area, all new, very good stuff right here. Lots of construction going on. And we're seeing a lot more road construction. These roads are gonna be a huge benefit to local business. The improvements at the beach are gonna really help out with tourism. But the big question is, how is this work getting done? So when I turned this corner, I was surprised to see trucks. I mean, not trucks per se, obviously they're using heavy machinery to get this work done, but it was the types of trucks that I saw. Howo might not be a name that you recognize, but Sinotruk is a lot easier to see what's going on. These were Chinese trucks getting the work done. And it wasn't just the trucks that shocked me. The moment that I caught was like, I actually caught it on film. I don't know if you're gonna notice it. Let me show you what I saw. Oh, wow. Did you catch that? It wasn't just the trucks that are Chinese. It's the operators that are Chinese. I have been shocked to see how many Chinese people I've been seeing around town. Now, seeing these Chinese trucks and workers, it really should not have surprised me. I guess I was surprised because a lot of my perceptions of international development are rooted in ideas that were floating around in the early 2000s. That's when we set up the Millennium Development Goals. We saw lots of progress in research in developing countries. You saw lots of books coming out. A lot of the big books in development economics were published in the early 2000s. And at that time, America was the one that was doing a lot of foreign aid, foreign investment. There was a lot of concerns about how America was involved in those things. In fact, even today, we have people who pretty wildly overestimate how much the US is putting into foreign aid from our national budget, because a lot of these ideas were floating around in the early 2000s. We kind of have this like Michael Scott syndrome around international aid, where America has always been number one, not China. China's supposed to be number 8. But China has made an aggressive push over the last 20 years, and it seems like America has decided that it's gonna let it happen. So before the Trump administration showed up, China was already outspending the US in West Africa. And then Trump decided that USAID was going to be dismantled, and China stepped up and said, hey, we'll start filling in gaps. We're willing to help out these countries. Moreover, China is inviting African students to come to their universities, giving them scholarships, while the US seems to be pushing out international students. China is deepening trade relationships with West Africa, while we're putting up trade barriers. I had heard about these things happening, but to see it with my own eyes so quickly after arriving in West Africa just completely changed the reality, the gravity of that situation. In fact, the road construction wasn't even a development project. It was just a Chinese company that had come in and bid on this project. And now they're getting the Chinese capital, they're getting Chinese human capital, right? They're getting that expertise, they're getting those ties. There are a lot of things happening there that maybe we're missing out on in the United States if we just let this happen. Everyone benefits from a world with less poverty. So I'm grateful that Benin's getting roads, no matter who it's coming from, right? America is gonna benefit from a richer Benin. But what happens when the people here in Benin become more familiar with the Chinese people, their language, their culture, their values? It might not just be the American greenback that's no longer welcome here. I'll be here in Benin for 6 months, documenting some of the things that I find the most interesting. If you're interested in this or just economics generally, be sure to subscribe.